Okay, now that we've learned about the different parts of a cell, their job, their function, how the cell works, we're now going to talk about the processes that go on inside cells. So those two main processes are photosynthesis and cellular respiration. So more specifically, we're going to talk about how cells transform energy so that we can use them. Okay, so today we're going to talk about simply photosynthesis and plant cells. So our essential question for the day is, how do plants transform energy? So where that's going to fall with target 9, where after the notes and the practice, you'll be able to model and explain how plants use energy from the sun and transform that energy into food for the plant. You will also be able to write the chemical equation for photosynthesis, which includes the products and the reactants. So that's our learning target. Okay, so to start off, let's just do a quick review on what energy is. Energy is the ability to cause a change in some system. So right now we're going to talk about how energy is going to cause a change in our cells, in the matter inside the cells. So we're going to talk about how energy is going to go into a cell, okay, and make some changes there. Okay, so what you're looking at with that picture is basically a cycle showing where plants are taking in the sun's energy, and through the process of photosynthesis, that those plants are going to be able to take the sun's energy, convert it into chemical energy, which is what the oxygen and glucose contain. Okay, so let's kind of do, this is still a review. Remember, energy exists in two forms, either potential or kinetic. So potential is stored energy due to position. So if you increase the height or the mass, you have more potential energy. Okay, and yeah, there's a typo, I forgot my E on the increase. So last year, remember, we talked about potential and kinetic energy. If you have increased your height, like this bicycler is at the top of the hill, he has the most potential energy. That's usually when you're not moving. Kinetic energy is energy of motion. If you increase the mass or the speed, you're going to increase kinetic energy. So obviously, going down the hill, you're going to have more kinetic energy because you're going faster than if you are going up the hill. So that's just a review on potential and kinetic energy. Now, let's kind of review also what are different types of potential energy. So potential energy is chemical energy. That's what we're going to be talking about a lot, because chemical energy is the energy that's stored in atoms or compounds, which are pure substances. So when I talk about glucose or oxygen, those are both compounds, pure substances that contain stored energy, chemical energy. Okay, so that's your example, is glucose. Now, kinetic energy is what we're converting to. So we're going to take that stored chemical energy and we might convert it into mechanical energy, light energy, sound energy, electrical energy. These are all types of energy that create motion. Okay, so when we specifically talk about photosynthesis, plants are going to be taking light energy, which is kinetic, and converting that into chemical energy, the sugar, for the plant cell. Okay, so let's talk about photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is a process where plants, who are autotrophs, use the sun's energy, which is kinetic energy, to make food, which is going to be the potential energy, that chemical stored energy. The sun, remember from last year we talked a little bit about this, but the sun's light energy travels to Earth by radiation and hits the plant, converting or transferring that light energy into chemical energy. Okay, so remember we talked a lot about how energy can be transferred into different forms. Well, now you're actually seeing an example of how that energy can be transferred into different forms inside a living thing. Remember, photosynthesis occurs in the chloroplast. So the chloroplast is going to be the organelle that is going to capture the light energy from the sun and convert it into the chemical energy that the plants need, which is sugar. Okay, the equation for photosynthesis, okay, In order for photosynthesis to occur, which is considered a chemical reaction or a chemical change, which we learned about in 6th grade. Remember, a chemical change creates a new substance, okay? And we talked about the difference between chemical and physical changes last year, but remember, both of them need energy. So the only way photosynthesis is going to occur is if there's some energy put into the cell, and that energy is light energy. You can see I put it in red, okay? So the equation, in order for plants to photosynthesize, they have to have what we call ingredients or the reactants. If they do not have the reactants, photosynthesis will not occur. So in order for plants to photosynthesize, they need CO2, which is called carbon dioxide. That's what plants take in, which is kind of nifty because that's what animals breathe out. So we help the plants that way. So plants take in carbon dioxide. They also take in water. You know this. All plants need water in order to survive. Any living thing does. Now, once it has those reactants, once it has a plant has carbon dioxide and water, it's not going to just automatically photosynthesize. Again, remember, a chemical reaction needs energy. So it has to have light energy. So once that plant cell, that chloroplast inside the plant cell collects light energy from the sun, the two, carbon dioxide and water, can react. That's what this arrow is meaning, react, and it can create two compounds. This compound right here, C6H12O6, that is glucose, or the sugar that the plants use as food. Okay. Now the other thing that plants also produce is oxygen. Oxygen is a waste product. That's what plants breathe out, so to speak, into the atmosphere. So you can kind of see how plants help us. They give us O2 as a waste product of photosynthesis. They'll take in CO2, which is a waste product of animals respirating. Okay, and we'll get to cellular respiration in the next set of notes. So this is the equation for photosynthesis. These are the ingredients off to the left-hand side of the arrow, the reactants. Once you have enough energy for those to react, they're going to make the products for the equation, which is glucose and oxygen. Now, when we talk about photosynthesis, the process of photosynthesis, we are going to be supporting two major theories in science. And you've heard about these before. The theory of conservation of matter or mass and the theory of conservation of energy. They both state that matter or energy cannot be created or destroyed, it can only be changed. Well, photosynthesis supports this theory. This is why this theory exists, because there's a lot of applications in science that support the theory. So let's look at the conservation of energy. So if plants take in light energy, which is kinetic energy, they're going to convert that into chemical energy, which is potential, which that chemical energy is the glucose. Remember, that's what the plants make. Okay, some of that kinetic energy was transferred as heat instead of chemical, because remember, we talked about this last year, not all the energy gets converted, not all that kinetic energy from the light gets converted into the chemical energy. Some of it gets transferred as other types of energy as heat. But again, we're not creating or destroying the energy, we're just changing. So we started out using, the plants use light energy, and they just change it into chemical energy that the plant cell uses. So we're not creating or destroying energy, we're just changing it. The same goes with the matter. Okay, so if we look at this equation, it's the same equation, but you'll notice there's some numbers in front of these compounds. These numbers, the 6 is called coefficients. So basically what that means is that, whoops, where'd it go? Let me get it back. Okay, what that means is if we just took the equation and we took away the 6's. So let me find my eraser for just a minute. Okay, so let's say that we take out the 6's. Let's pretend they're not there right now. Okay, that's just the equation that I gave you for photosynthesis. Okay, now if we take out those 6's, okay, what you're left with, if you look at this, okay, you've got CO2, carbon dioxide. Okay, in that compound, there's one carbon atom. Well, if you look over here, there are 6 carbon atoms. That's called a subscript. That tells you how many atoms of carbon are in this compound. Well, we can't go from 1 carbon to 6 carbon because we know we can't create matter. So we can't start off with 1 carbon and turn it into 6 more. That's not possible. So what you have here is a coefficient. Okay? So what this 6 means is that means that there are 6 CO2 compounds that are reacting with 6 water compounds. Okay? So that works because then if you notice we now have 6 carbon atoms on the reactants, 6 carbon atoms on the products. Now let's check and make sure the other ones work because this is showing how matter cannot be created or destroyed, just changed. So if you look at your hydrogen, okay, this says H2, so 2 atoms of hydrogen bonded with oxygen to make water. There's a 6 in front of that. So what you do with those 2 is you multiply 6 times 2, which is 12, because that means there are 12 hydrogen atoms, because there's 6 water molecules that contain 2 hydrogen atoms, so there's a total of 12 hydrogen atoms. Well, let's look over here on the products. There are also 12 hydrogen atoms. So now we have hydrogen atoms equaling each other on the reactants and the product side. So again, we didn't create or destroy matter. Now we got to check our oxygen. So over here, 6 times 2, that's 12 oxygen. 6 times 1 oxygen is just 6. So 6 plus 12 is a total of 8 oxygen atoms. Well, let's look over here and see if that makes sense. 6 times 2 is 12. 12 plus 6 is 18, that's 18 oxygen atoms. So now this is what we call a balanced equation. The matter on the left-hand side equals the matter on the right-hand side. It supports the theory of conservation of matter. Okay? And if you notice, all we did to that matter is change it. So the carbon that was in carbon dioxide over here is now in the carbon for sugar. So we changed matter. Okay, but we didn't create or destroy it because again, there's still 6 carbon atoms, 6 carbon atoms. So that's how photosynthesis supports the theory of conservation of matter and energy.